There's a lot of folks that think they know what their conversion rate is, but it's really estimated. It's not a true measured number. And then when they actually do the measurement, it oftentimes is lower than anticipated.
Hi, Tanner. Great to be back again for another chat. And we've been working through some cool topics the last couple of weeks, and today's week 3. So what's a good, give us a brief of what to expect today.
I am super excited because we've been talking about how to make more profit within a business. And today's topic is going to be completely about conversion rate. So as a quick reference, if you have not watched or listened to the last 2 episodes that Kay and I did, I'm going to highly recommend that you go back and take a look at it because there's some really good nuggets out of it. And I do kind of very quickly teach the framework that we're looking through. But for those that are on video, this is what it looks like. Throw that up on the screen there so you should be able to see it. But it's essentially how do we break down making more profit, and the way we make more profit is understanding that profit is essentially your revenue times your profit margins. To get to revenue, it's your number of total customers times how often they buy from you times how much they spend on average, gets you the total revenue or sales numbers. And if we backtrack from there, how do we get customers? It's the number of leads that you have and what's your conversion rate. So today's topic is all about conversion rate. How do we improve that very specific component of this framework? And that's the topic here today.
I'm excited to dive into this one because this is one I feel like as a business owner, I'm always working on. I'm always looking at, at how many people I talk to versus how many people buy into my program, and how can I tweak that and make that be as fruitful as possible. So this is going to be great.
Yeah, and that, maybe we should start with just a little bit of anecdotal evidence or conversations or stories before we get into a list of here's different things that you can do, because there's some that are really easy to do. There's others that maybe take a little bit more skill. But Kay, I know you've been really working on your conversion rate just from a initial conversation side of things through to some of the products and service that you do now. You've gone through kind of our 12-week sales program and learned a whole bunch there. Tell us a little bit about what you've seen in terms of your conversion rate within your business and some of the things that you've been thinking through to help increase that over time.
Definitely. Yeah, it's been a journey and it's been fun to refine, and seeing some places that are finding success right now are, when I host once a month a live event, a meet and greet networking event for the artists I work with. And that has really shown to be a great way to almost create that first step, that handshake. And then if you get them coming back month to month, gives them a place to have community, and you're building that trust. And from there, it's been easier for me to get to know artists in person to see who might be a really great fit. And so I kind of do some pre-work to who I'm going to talk to and really initiate the deeper conversation about the coaching course. Because I'm not for everyone, but I can be for anyone, and kind of being able to understand who my ideal client is has really helped me with my conversion rate, because they're ready for it. They're ready for that accelerator. They're ready to launch their music career and go beyond what they're doing right now. And so I think those have been some things. It's almost like a market research in real time. You're just getting to know the people that attend your events. For me, that's been a huge benefit, is just creating something where everybody can meet in person, but also just being more conscientious about my conversion rates and about what I'm doing, so I can always have something prepared in my mind in case a casual conversation turns into a potential business conversation or sales pitch, which has also been happening. So those are the 2 things I've been seeing growth.
That's really interesting. And I want to highlight this for a second. So, one of the best ways to increase conversion rate is something that you just articulated, which is have essentially better leads or pre-qualify the leads. So it's kind of, on the surface, we think of here's leads and here's customers, conversion rates in the middle. So it's like my conversion rate to sale. Reality is there's probably a bunch of different conversion rates. The people that I talked to or attended an event, what's the conversion rate from that step to people I actually had a sales conversation with, and then what's my conversion rate from sales conversation to customer, right? There's different conversion rates that we could look at. We try to simplify it for today's conversation, just say conversion rate overall. But it's important to recognize that because there may be different components where maybe the sales process isn't broken and maybe it's something in the lead qualification process, which is more of a marketing thing than it is a sales thing. Likewise, you could also have really qualified leads and just not be great at closing the sale. And then you have more of a sales problem than you do a marketing problem. But it is important to kind of recognize this. And as you stated, going through that process to pre-qualify some of the leads earlier on or get them further down that buying process does make that conversion rate at the end a little bit easier and much stronger, right? So I think that's a huge win that I just wanted to re-articulate for the audience. And then I think if we distilled down the other component that you said, it's kind of knowing the conversion rate and being aware of what we're doing with that can allow us to increase it. And one of my favorite things to ask is, before we change anything, we just measure stuff. Everyone loves measuring and tracking numbers and things like that. No, wait, that's probably just me. But, it's important to take a look at and go, when we do measure stuff, then we can manage it. And simply by just knowing what the numbers are, let's say I actually calculate and I find out that my conversion rate is 40%. It's like, okay, great. Now I know what it is. Because I know what it is, and I'm putting focus towards it, simply by doing that, you're probably going to see an increase in the conversion rate. Now, is it going to double or triple? Maybe, maybe not. But is it going to go from 40% to 45% or 50% simply by focusing on it and being conscientious of the conversations we're having? Probably, right? That's usually step number one. We didn't have to change anything. We just had to go through and make sure that we're measuring it consistently. And, that's probably lesson number one. There's a lot of folks that think they know what their conversion rate is, but it's really estimated. It's not a true measured number. And then when they actually do the measurement, oftentimes it's lower than anticipated. So not a bad thing, but a really good thing to be able to see where that number is so that we can make some changes with it.
100%. I know when we have our conversations, I say, I got to throw a little more love at my numbers and know it a little more. And that's been a good way for me to kind of wrap my brain around that, because it's ultimately for your benefit to understand your numbers and what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those that are in the audience that really are sitting here going, that's great. Now I understand my conversion rate. There's some good stories. How do I actually do that for my own business? I've gone through, we've got a list of 85 plus different kind of ways that we can play with conversion rate and improve it. I've highlighted a couple and I just want to throw them out there, have a little bit of conversation on them so that ideally if you're listening to this or watching this later on, you can say, hey, I'm going to take that one. I'm going to find a way to implement it into my business and see what the results are. So the first one that pops up on the list here, and Kay, I'd love your thoughts on this one first. A written guarantee. Having a written guarantee in your process to increase conversion rate.
I'm open to exploring that more because that's not something that I've done before. Because I honestly got nervous about guarantees because it kind of puts a pressure. So how do we wrap our brains around guarantees and implement them properly?
So I absolutely love guarantees. When you understand that it's really more of a marketing thing than it is anything else. So here's the way I like to think about guarantees. First of all, there may be some industries and folks out there listening to this going, well, Tanner, I can't give a guarantee. I'm in a regulated industry. I've got something. I can't do a guarantee how most people think about it, which is probably like a money back guarantee or a guarantee of results or something like that, right? That's okay. The question is, what can you guarantee? And when you think about what can I guarantee in the business, the whole point of guarantee is how do you take every objection that somebody may have with your product or service and remove it before it's a problem? That's a marketing play. So if you think about, I'll use this example, which I know I've used on different workshops and conversations such in the past, but I love it because most people can kind of visualize it for better or for worse. But back in the day, a little bit of an older example now, but let's call it a plumbing company. Plumbing company comes in and they're like, well, I can't guarantee results. But, trying to think of what should they do for a guarantee. So all right, let's put this together. Let's figure out what we're going to do. And they sat down and they looked at what are all the things that people hate about hiring a plumber or hiring plumbing services. And, at this day and age, when they were going through this exercise, it was, these plumbers come in, they're always late. They're always sloppy or messy. They leave the workspace much messier and dirtier than it was before they came in. And maybe some of these people were a little bit less than super physically fit and maybe didn't always have the appropriate attire on. Think of kind of the proverbial plumbers, So, these types of things come to mind. So when you're thinking of a guarantee, think about, okay, what are all the objections or the things people really dislike about buying the product or service? Not necessarily buying from you, but buying from that product or service. What can we guarantee that will alleviate all of those. So in this particular example, it was, we're going to put a guarantee right up on the sign that says we are going to guarantee that every single plumbing appointment will show up 5 minutes early. We're going to ensure that the space that they come in and they're working on is going to be cleaner than the way they found it. Doesn't matter the condition today, it will be cleaner than it was when we leave. And we will make sure that every plumber wears a belt. What a guarantee. Because you think about all of the objections that someone would have and just knock them out right there. That's what the guarantee is for. So I love going through the exercise of what can we guarantee in the business? What are all the things that maybe are the friction points that people have some issues with or pain points with, and find a way to just resolve those and put that as your guarantee.
That is genius. I just took notes because I'm thinking about my business, looking at the plumber business is three very simple things. They don't have to be guarantee, any even talking about if like the customer say wants to make sales. Like it's not even guaranteeing any of those big things. It's just a little annoying things that we're trying to get rid of.
It's really amazing because I know I've talked to a lot of business owners out there, and they struggle with this idea of a guarantee. And when you break it down into this context of it really does not have to be that complex. Just think of it as if you're a buyer of the business or a buyer of the service or product. What are the things why you would say no? And then just think about how would I guarantee those? Now, in some cases, it may be something like a money back guarantee because I'm afraid of the money side of things, or I don't believe that I'm going to get results. So can we put a guarantee around results in some way, shape, or form? Maybe it's not direct results. Maybe there's some other thing. Again, it depends on your industry. Check your regulations, all that kind of stuff. Don't want to get anyone in trouble. But really thinking through that process, it's more of an objection handling thing than it is anything else.
Definitely. That's a really great way to wrap my brain around that, because I wouldn't have thought of guarantees like this, like in this way. So I think that's really, really smart.
So let's move on to the next one. This one's probably my favorite. Sales scripts. So what do you think about when I say sales scripts? What comes to mind?
I actually really like sales scripts because it gives you a blueprint. It gives you a way, and it gives you an answer for parts of the conversation that'll come up, like objections or fears or whatever that comes up. You have an answer. And that's what I really like about a sales script. And I also like that it's evergreen, that you can, as needed, adjust it as the market changes or as your client may change. So I really like the idea of a sales script.
You may be among the minority.
Really?
When I'm talking to larger audiences, I say sales scripts. Part of the room is very similar to you. It's like, oh yeah, I love those. Let's do that all the time. And the other part's like, just cringe because they're like, all they think of is hey, I'm on a recorded line and I'm saying it in a monotone way this way, and hi, my name is, right? And they just go like, that's a script, so to say. And it's like, well, it is. However, when we think of sales scripts, the best way to think about a sales script is what is the proven framework that we're going to be speaking from. It's always good to learn a script first and then naturalize it for kind of your own voice and feel. But the goal is, what are the key bullet points that we need to make sure that we hit, and are we hitting them in the right order? That tends to be probably the biggest thing when it comes to script, is if we go straight to asking for a sale, it's like just meeting somebody on the street and asking for marriage. It's usually not going to work out very well.
Got to date for a little bit first.
You got to take that step back, and you got to kind of walk through a process before you've built that rapport and trust and things like that, that now you can actually give them a solution to the thing that they're looking for, right? That's when we ask for the sale. So when it comes to sales scripts, it's being able to build that framework around how that looks. My favorite thing to do with this is if you've got any size of team that's doing some sales stuff for you, and you've got one person that's outperforming everybody else, whether it's a little bit or a lot, right? Go and listen to what they're saying. How are they managing the call, the conversation, the in-person meeting? Like, what are they doing differently than all the other sales reps? Replicate it. That's a sales script. Like, it doesn't have to be this monotone, really drawn out thing. It's what's working that converts. What's the thing that gets them through the objections? What guides them along that journey to help them articulate that they've got a need and we've got the right solution to pair with that, and we can help them make a professional decision to buy, right? That is what sales really is. So sales script is just helping framework that so it happens every single time. Instead of, I got it really good this first time, and then I forgot to do it the second time and I didn't get a sale. And then I kind of did it the third time, maybe I got a sale. It gets rid of that and just makes it every single time I can make sure that I'm guiding the person that I'm talking to the best possible solution that they need. And if I'm approaching it that way, that's what a sales script should be used for.
Definitely. You've got my wheels turning on even just like how can I improve my sales script? How can I, because I tend to get off course sometimes and I'm like, oh, let's just skip a step. But then, yeah, then it's like, so I've learned from experience and sometimes it's like really good to like, say you have your script to check in with yourself on it. Maybe have a colleague or a friend or maybe a previous client or somebody like run it with them
Mm-hmm.
and see how like it's good to again sharpen yourself from time to time once you have that script.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the sales script, I'm gonna say something that probably resonates with a lot of the business owners out here. One of the biggest issues is that in a small business, usually it's the owner, the founder, the CEO that is the best at sales. Right? They're usually the one that started it. They had to do the sales to begin with. They went through the hundreds of reps that was required to get the business actually kind of up and running. And now they're sitting here going, I don't really want to do the sales anymore, but I bring on salespeople and they suck. They're not as good as I am. I might as well just go get right? I should just go do the sale then. And part of that is just how do you bottle what you do so that you can train somebody else on it and then drill it over and over and over and over again, right? Sales training is a real thing. But when we think of sales script, it's really just taking what works. And oftentimes that's what you're doing as the owner. How do you take what you know works? How do you approach the conversation? What's the different ways that you would use the inflection of your voice? And how do you build rapport? Bottle that, not just the words, but the energy and everything else. Like we're in today's day and age where a lot of our meetings happen on Zoom and things like that. Record it. You can actually record all of it, not just the words that you say, and be able to use that as a training mechanism to get somebody else up to speed and be just as good, if not better than you are. And then you can actually hand that thing off.
100%. That is such a key component is, you as the owner, you as the founder, you're going to know your business because you created it. And it's, yeah, about that, bottling up, training someone into being able to have that same understanding. And that will take time, but it is very well worth it because then you can pass the baton, or, you can still continue to do sales and grow by having more people doing sales.
Mm-hmm.
Either way you want to do it, it gives you that good blueprint to pass on to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to ask a pop quiz here since you've gone through a lot of sales and some different training and things like that. What's the number one tool that a salesperson has in their belt?
Number one tool that a salesperson has in their belt. That is a tough one. I would say, I could say like believe in what you're selling.
Ooh.
You have to believe in it. That's, I guess, my kind of my personal one. But I don't know. I'm curious if that's at all.
I would put that definitely up there. That having conviction in what you sell is definitely important. Probably the number one tool that a salesperson has, though, is questions. The
Yes.
ability to ask questions
Yes.
and just listen, right? So if we look at ways to increase conversion rate, asking questions and listening is one of the most powerful things that you can do, right? If we take this step back and go, sales is nothing more than professionally helping others to buy. How do we guide them on that journey? We can only do that if we're asking questions and learning about them. How do we dig deep enough that the prospect in front of us articulates that they have an issue that they actually want solved? Not us telling them things, but they have to articulate that there's something there, and we have to be able to pair that with a solution that we have. And if we don't have a solution, then we're not a good fit, and that's okay. But our goal is to help them on that journey. So when we are able to find out what that that pain point is, that frustration, that friction point, that need is that they have, it becomes our responsibility to give them the opportunity to solve that particular problem that they have.
100%. Now that you say that, I think back to when I do my sales calls and I do that. Like I'll ask my artists, what are your goals in music? Do you want to be a headliner? Do you want to be a touring artist? If you don't, like that might not, then I know maybe they could go into a different program, like a weekly coaching group call or just a boot camp or something. But if they want that executive, like accelerator program to really go from, bedroom DJ to headliner, then that's exactly who my target is. So asking all those qualifying questions and really get to know what are their goals. Because I would never want to force someone to go become a headliner if they don't want to. That's a big step. And so, yeah, really asking those questions and understand what they truly want and need is crucial.
Absolutely. So, in the interest of time, let's go through maybe two more. Like I said, this is a list of 85 plus different ways that we can do it, and each one's gonna be a little bit different based on where you are in business. But hopefully, some of these that we're going through today are applicable enough to many of the businesses that may be listening or watching to this later that you can take one and just test that specific one. So, I got two written down here that I want to mention. The next one here is flow charting your sales process.
Hmm.
What do you think about flow charting your sales process?
I think that's a great way to visually see where you're at and where each of your customers are at or clients are at in the journey. So that's kind of what I would think right away.
Yeah, so it really goes back to what you had mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, right? There's people that you're pre-qualifying. There's more than just one step, and in most cases there are, right? There's some businesses that are a little bit more, I want to say impulse buy, but they're smaller sales that can happen without talking to anyone, right? So think of your e-commerce stores, things like that. The reality is there's still multiple steps involved. There may not be 10 different steps, but it may be I saw something, I saw an ad, or I was searching for something, right? That's step one. I found the landing page or the shop that has this stuff. I found the thing that I want, and I made the decision to click the button, right? There is multiple steps that happens with it. So being able to understand what that customer journey looks like and feels like can make us better as salespeople and help increase that conversion rate. So that could be just simply understanding, okay, they didn't go through these steps over here, and we're trying to force them in down at this point. They haven't built all of that understanding from beforehand. How do I help bridge the gap from where they are today and where they need to go based on what they've articulated? Flow charting and understanding that process can be really helpful for that. Going back to kind of the way I think, right? Numbers, understanding different things. When you flow chart it out and you know what the different steps are, and you do properly measure from step to step, from initial conversation or meeting at an event to maybe a coffee meeting to maybe a sales conversation to actual sale. Let's just say something like that, 4 steps. If you flow chart that out and you're measuring, you can see, where do I have the largest drop off? Maybe it's I have the largest drop off from coffee meeting to sales conversation. Like, I'm just not really good at asking them for that next piece. But if I can see that, I can visually see it, then I can say, this is the area that I need to focus on within the business. Or you might flow chart it that way and have 5 different team members, and 3 of them get them all the way to the sale. One of them gets them all the way to the sales meeting, but doesn't convert them. And the other one is struggling to even get them to the sales conversation itself. Well, now I can see, where should some of that sales training go? Like, this person may need some help on actually closing. This person may need to just remember to ask for the next step, something simple like that. But flow charting and looking at it that way helps us make some of those decisions where we can figure out where is the greatest fall off, so that I can provide the best resources possible for those that are running the process for us within the business.
Definitely. And it helps to keep the ducks in a row, because you're really seeing where they're at and knowing what's happening at each step.
Mm-hmm. So last one that I want to end on, I'm going to kind of bucket these two things together because I think there's different ways for different things. Testimonials and or demonstration videos. So I want you to think back to maybe a recent purchase that you had. Larger purchase, maybe not something that was a quick impulse buy, walked into a grocery store and grabbed a candy bar, not something like that, but like an actual purchase you had to give a little bit of thought to. Did you read any testimonials before? Did you look at the Google reviews? Did you look up on YouTube and see other people using it, or look for a demo of what it was? Or, you pull up the App Store on your iPhone, and there's usually images and maybe a little video there right at the top of each of the apps that you open. Did any of those things happen on the last couple purchases that you made?
Usually now, even with small purchases, I will check, like even in e-commerce, like clothing, for example. I just bought some new tennis shoes. You check, what are the reviews on these shoes? Like if they're athletic or more leisure, or how are people noticing about the fit? I would say more often than not, I do check at least a review, especially if I see something promoted online like Instagram for something that is in my algorithm, and I'm very interested in that, and I go and I look at it and I say, what is this really like? You look, whether it be Reddit or Yelp or whatever you're looking at for your reviews, I more often times than not will at least look into, especially if I'm buying from that store for the first time.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of crazy. Like, we all generally, I'm making a generalized statement here, but I would say that most of us understand that, hey, having some testimonials or Google reviews or things like that is important. But when we actually take a step back and go, what are our buying behaviors, and realize how often we actually look up stuff, like I can't tell you how many times, if it's a larger purchase or like software as an example, like I'm going to check out this new app or, this AI tool or something else like that. I'm probably looking all over on the website. I'm seeing what other people are saying. I'm looking for a demo video, like without even really realizing it. And I won't make a decision unless I take a look at it. I remember going to different sites or pages that don't have a video. And they may have, the site may be great. The app might be fantastic, but there's no video there, so I can't see a visual of it. I'm going to go and look for one that does, because I want to know what it is that I'm actually getting. So it's kind of crazy when we start thinking about those things, that those actually do help with conversion rate, right? Testimonials, it's a big one. If you have a friend that tells you, hey, you definitely should go check out this particular product because I bought it last week and it was fantastic, the likelihood of you buying that thing is so much higher than if you just found that on your own and then decide, I'm going to give this a shot. Still might say yes to it, but that power from somebody, especially somebody saying, you know what, I bought this was fantastic, you should give it a shot. Like, it's powerful.
It really is. And if you even think about your niche or what you're working on, a lot of the times the group that you are, say, your client-based group, they might know each other. Like, especially in my case, I work with electronic music artists, and a lot of them know each other. So if they see a familiar face give a testimonial who's been through one of my courses and said they got value out of it, they've noticed a change in their music career, then that gives them reassurance, and they know they could even just go have a conversation with that person or give them a call if they want to. So thinking about like leveraging your network that way, like testimonials can be a huge resource, because the folks you work with may know each other.
So I think for today, the summary of it is use testimonials, use video, use demos, things like that. The deeper thing, and maybe we do another conversation on this down the road, but how do you do it? What's the best way? Where do we put the testimonials? At what point in the sales process, right? We pull that together with the flowcharting in the process. There's so much more that can be done with this, but gives you some really good, simple things I think will work in most industries. So if you're listening, again, take one thing today, just one. Pick one of them that you haven't really tried or thought about before, the one that resonated with you, and implement that one in your business over the next couple of weeks and just see what happens. See if your conversion rate goes up by 5%, 6%. Like, how do you get just a small movement and see what that does with the rest of your business? That's my advice to anyone listening. And then we'll come back and we've got 2 more segments. Previous 2 videos, go back and listen or watch. We talked about average dollar sale and how to increase that. We talked about how to increase your profit margins overall. Today we talked about conversion rate. In the next couple of weeks, we'll get into how do we increase the number of transactions that somebody has with the business. How often do they buy from us? And then we'll finish off with everybody's favorite, how do we get more leads? And we'll increase lead generation.
Thank you, Tanner. I'm looking forward to the next couple videos.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks.